Former Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari is dead. He passed away at the age of 82 in London after a prolonged battle with health challenges that had shadowed the final years of his life and presidency. His death marks the end of an era, not just for the man, but for the complex legacy he leaves behind. Twice a ruler, once a general, and always a symbol. Now he's gone. But before the tributes roll in and the myths begin to grow, let's talk plainly, truthfully, and with clarity about his legacy, because the Federal Republic of Nigeria under former President Muhammadu Buhari never had it this bad. This is Nairametrics. Let's get to it. The year was 2022. The nation was spiraling, neck deep in what his government boldly branded as next-level economic agenda, a promise of prosperity that never came. Instead, what Nigerians got was one of the worst economic crises in living memory. Foreign investors gone, chased away by forex policies many experts label heterodox, inflation out of control, GDP stagnant, and poverty everywhere. Even the naira collapsing very fast on the black market, even though it looked deceptively stable on official books. Even members of Buhari's own party couldn't hide their delusionment. But here's the paradox. Despite this disaster, Buhari's footprint on Nigeria's history is undeniable. He was there in the 1970s, shaping the petroleum industry. He ruled as a no-nonsense military head in the 80s, returning as a democratically elected president in 2015 and chaired the PTF. Muhammadu Buhari touched every major institution in the post-independence era, and yet left many of them weaker. But let's not sugarcoat this. His critics called him clueless, even incapable. But you don't get to lead a nation twice, survive the military, win at the ballot, and command loyalty for decades by being unintelligent. Call him rigid, call him unyielding, fine, but stupid, the facts say otherwise. Still, facts are facts. And the fact is, Buhari governed Nigeria during an era of unparalleled economic decline. His first stint in the 1980s, import substitutions, closed borders, protectionism, it was a difficult time. Yes, the oil boom had fizzled and the corruption hollowed out of the treasury. But the economic policies his regime introduced, largely irrational. Even his die-hard supporters would admit that. Then came the year 2015. His re-election was a hopeful moment, a war cry against corruption, but oil prices had crashed again. The economy was shaken, Nigeria was on edge, and Buhari's response, policies he believed were pro-people, but many economists called problems dressed as solutions. He refused to lift fuel and electricity subsidies. He insisted on keeping the naira pegged at unrealistic rates. With all of these resulting in massive capital flight, forex scarcity, and an economy crumbling under pressure. By 2018, under CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, the country tried a bold fix, raise interest rates to attract foreign capital. Well, it worked, but briefly. Over $20 billion came in, the naira stabilized. But like all quick fixes, it was unsustainable. The house of cards fell, and devaluation returned with a vengeance. Meanwhile, the country wasn't just bleeding economically. Insecurity worsened. Buhari, a retired general, promised to relocate the war on terror to the insurgents' doorsteps. Instead, those insurgents marched towards the capital. Abductions, killings, fear, these became the normal. And then there was his health. From 152 days to over 200 days spent abroad seeking medical care. Nigerians waited. Rumors swirled. Had he died? Was he replaced by a body double? The Jubril, in quotes, from Sudan conspiracy gained traction, not because it made sense, but because his silence fueled it. Yet in the year 2019, he returned and won re-election in a near landslide. Then came 2020, COVID-19, the world shut down, oil prices crashed again, and Nigeria, still addicted to subsidies, began hemorrhaging money. The CBN, with Buhari's blessing, printed over 20 trillion naira in what's called ways and means, funding the government by literally creating money. And as if the economic storm wasn't enough, his chief of staff, Abba Kyari, arguably the engine behind Buhari's policymaking, died. The vacuum he left was deafening. From subsidy debts to naira chaos, insecurity to conspiracy, economic stagnation to institutional decay, by 2023, Nigeria had become an economic pariah. Then, in the twilight of his presidency, the Naira design debacle, a rushed, confusing policy that stifled cash flow nationwide just before the general election. It was in many ways a microcosm of his presidency, chaotic, controversial, and costly. And yet, as the sun set on his presidency, Buhari kept true to character, aloof. He gave a muted endorsement to his party's candidate and then quietly retired to his farm in Daura. So what do we make of this man? To some, he was principled. To others, painfully detached. He had a loyal following, and that's a fact. He had power, and that's undeniable. He had impact, that's undisputable. He came, he saw, he conquered, well, in his own way. But in the end, death conquers all, except history. Former President Muhammadu Buhari's legacy will be debated for decades. But one thing remains certain, for better or worse, he left Nigeria changed. May the soul of the departed find rest.